Welcome to another episode of the Apex Perspective podcast. Today, I have with me Anjan Dave, who is currently a principal solutions architect at AWS. Now, Anjan started off his career as a systems and networking administrator. Subsequently, he is led as an IT systems manager. And of course, like I did mention beforehand, he is currently the principal solutions architect at AWS. But Anjan, can you tell me a little bit more about your background and particularly first why you chose to become technical and what led you to Amazon?
Yeah, first of all, thank you, Aryan. Pleasure to meet you, and I really appreciate this opportunity to talk to you about some of these things about my career and personal life. I appreciate that. Um, in terms of the background, Aryan, what led me to technology is a long story. I'll try to be brief here, but it goes back to my childhood. Uh, I think when I was probably in middle school back in India, I had this first experiment of working with electrical engineering. And my dad had early on from my childhood, when I was a little kid, recognized that I have this tendency to kind of reverse engineer things or how things work. So if he brought me a toy, I would play with it and then I would open it apart to see what's inside and what makes it work. So that has been the theme. So in that middle school time, I didn't know really much about electrical. I'm talking about 220 volts here. I ended up making a series of colorful bulbs to light outside for Diwali. I thought it was ready to go. I plugged it in, turned it on, and woof, the whole house went dark because the fuse blew up.
Mm-hmm.
Called the electrician, and that was my first lesson. He very patiently explained to me that you do not join positive and negative together.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
They are supposed to be kept separate. So this kind of theme sort of continued of tinkering with things even into my education. And by the way, it was kind of a no-brainer for both me and my family that engineering is my destiny. So even in my undergrad program, I used to build things. Kind of made uh, a sound amplifier. It
Mm-hmm.
was a craze at that time. Assembled my own. I assembled a bunch of PCs several times and made a lot of different things. And that ultimately led me to additional certifications and in US and to my first job in the semiconductor space.
Excellent. So I know at Dell you had a lot of experience and working in product management or working with people in product management and and all throughout those particular departments. And that did require you to have an understanding of what you wanted to produce in terms of the business outcomes. Now, beforehand, I know you led as a principal storage engineer as well. But my question for you, and this is a common theme I see with a lot of individuals who are technical and they go throughout their careers and go a little bit higher, is that they have an understanding that they want to get understanding the outcome and why they're creating these solutions in the first place. So did you have that understanding a little bit later in your career, or how did that happen for you?
I think the aspect of why you want to do certain things or why you want to design a solution is always there. The why question has to be asked first, I feel.
Mhm.
So if you talk about the Dell experience, which was, I'm so grateful for that, by the way.
Mhm.
Worked with extremely great people there. I had an opportunity to dive into the public cloud environments, right? And I came very much from the private cloud or private hosted data centers environment. So I was very much ingrained into that. And looking at public cloud, I kind of saw a lot of value there very early on, right?
Mhm.
And oftentimes working with folks in business development, product management, and customers themselves,
Mhm.
we were kind of questioning, like, why is it this way? Like, why can't we do something like this? And this kind of comes with the practice of talking to customers, right? So
Mhm.
that's the first fundamental, that the more we talk to customers, the more we try to understand where are they coming from, what is it that they want to achieve, the more we understand that, how should we kind of map out our technology path and make our
Mhm.
roadmap that aligns with theirs, if that makes sense.
Excellent. And when you got that experience to understand what customers are using these solutions for and how they're using these solutions, what did your thinking process, or how did your thinking process change when it came to technology and solutions there?
Look, when we design solutions, even today, whether it's in Dell or in Amazon today, or even prior to that, customer is always in mind,
Hmm.
right? So, like our Jeff Bezos, our previous CEO, he has said that, customers are divinely discontent, right? It's such a meaningful statement there that you always go back and see how things are functioning, right? So a solution when it's built is never once and done, right? It kind of is actually a beginning of the journey, right? Because you
Yeah.
sowed the seeds. Now the plant is going to grow up, and now you're going to have to do a lot more with it, right?
Hmm.
So it actually never ends because it's a partnership, it's a collaboration,
Hmm.
right? So it's fun to actually interact with customers,
Hmm.
understand that here's where we started. How do we go from point A to point B from a technology standpoint, solution standpoint, and from B to C, and so on. Because
Okay.
technology,
Excellent.
as you know, constantly evolves, right? So our thought patterns also constantly evolve, solutions constantly evolve. What we designed 5 years, 6 years ago probably doesn't make sense anymore, right?
Hmm.
And we have to sometimes undertake massive changes, like, for example, changing the entire database platform, going from one technology to another. You can keep bandaging it for some time, but then you have to make hard decisions at some point.
Hmm. And Anjan, you and I were talking before this podcast about really understanding the industry you're in and how that relates to the technological solutions you create and how important that really is. Now, when you joined Amazon, from we were discussing, there was a curveball you're thrown regarding the industry you were creating solutions for. So the question for you is, when you were thrown that curveball, how do you approach understanding what truly moves the needle in that new industry that you were not previously acquainted with?
Yeah, indeed.
Hmm.
So you bring up a good one there. Look, I would step back a little bit, and people always want to move the needle, right? That's a very common phrase. My thought on that is, do you want to move the needle past 60 miles per hour, come back, or do you want to stay there and stay consistent there? To me,
Hmm.
that the latter matters more rather than just moving a needle like an RPM meter in the car, right? And yes, it was a huge curveball. I'll expand on it a little bit because I had many years of chip design background in terms of IT, and I kind of cut my teeth on it early on and spent many years working at various places. Very privileged to see that technology change over time. And on the basis of that, I got my role at Amazon back in 2021. And on my day one of joining, suddenly I have a new manager, and
Hmm.
we have this phone call, and he's like, I'm sorry, but we're gonna put you in this HCM industry, human capital management, and because of XYZ reasons. And I'm like, okay, well, so let's do it. And honestly, it's been an exhilarating ride. I think what moves the needle under certain circumstances like that is your aptitude.
Hmm.
What are you like uh, how things work, what can I do, willingness, eagerness, that
Hmm.
kind of thinking, I think, helps a lot.
Hmm.
Uh, and I know that change is always the only constant in life. That has always
Right.
been my mantra, right? So that being in the background, I came in brand new, completely cold into that
Hmm.
landscape.
Hmm.
And I tell you, it wasn't easy. I spent a
Yes.
while documenting things because there was a lot of tribal knowledge in the team, sparse and spread out across people's brains. And I made concentrated efforts to basically document everything for me as well as for other team members. I sat in many meetings with customers
Hmm.
without being able to contribute, but I
Hmm.
was listening, I was processing.
Mm-hmm.
I went out and checked out their products in the market where I could sign up for it and see firsthand what that customer experience looks like.
Mm-hmm.
I checked through their SEC filings, and I wish AI was there at that time to help me. I'm
Mm-hmm.
only talking about 2021, right? But still.
Yes.
So I think it needs a lot of work. And one thing that I kind of get reminded of is what Andy Jassy has said is there's no compression algorithm for
Mm-hmm.
experience, and I
Right.
lived it firsthand, and and,
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
totally worth every day of it. I'm super excited. I'm excited about chip design. I kind of try to stay up to date on that field, but this is where I am in completely involved in.
Yeah, certainly. So, were you looking for specific principles with this new industry? Because I asked this question because you've had experience in other industries prior, and you were creating solutions for this industry. So, you must have had an idea of what to look for. So, in those first couple of months, where you're sitting in customer meetings, what were you listening for to specifically learn so you can understand the industry better?
I think listening is multifold. You get a lot of signals from it. One is what is the current state of affairs in terms
Hmm.
of the technology that is being used here.
Hmm.
And second is what exactly they are trying to do and what problems are we trying to solve here.
Hmm.
It could be something as simple as, hey, this service is not working as expected. It could be something more complex like, I want to have a DR strategy.
Hmm.
How do I do that for this complex stack of application?
Hmm.
And from there, it goes into like, I want to create a product strategy,
Hmm.
right? How do I be more profitable? How do I improve my bottom line on this product? How does agentic help me, right? So there are multiple signals that you get from pretty much every interaction with the customer.
Hmm. Right.
And yeah,
You said something very critical, and I apologize. Were you saying something? My apologies.
no, all good. Go ahead.
Well, you're saying something very important about listening into what problems to solve specifically. Now, amongst a lot of my conversations with other principal engineers and other individuals leading these changes, one of the most important concepts is about identifying the correct problem to solve. So, as you're entering this new industry and you're listening into the customer problems, what was allowing you to potentially understand what was the correct problem to solve, and how do you approach finding the correct problem?
Yeah, I tend to take a different lens on that question, Aryan. Define the right problem first, right?
Hmm.
What is the definition of the right problem? I don't think we can afford to cherry pick the right problem and then solve it.
Hmm.
To me, you know, every problem is a problem.
Hmm.
There is probably a priority on it. That's okay,
Hmm.
right? But there is a problem, then it has to be solved. That's
Hmm.
the first thing. The second thing is that we are customer obsessed. Um, and I kind of spoke about this earlier, right? That, what Jeff Bezos said that customers are divinely discontent. So when you talk about problem identification, you can go back and look at um, any type of scenario, right? You will see opportunities there,
Hmm.
right? It's not really, doesn't happen in practice very often that problems manifest themselves in front of you and say, I'm a high priority problem, pick me, pick me. That very rarely happens, right? What happens in reality is that, you know, you have to go in and talk to your stakeholders, and what might not be a problem could be lurking out there as an opportunity in disguise for you,
Hmm.
not just for you but for rather for your customers, right?
Hmm.
And that is really the art of selling in my view,
Hmm.
right? When you go and simply talk, right? And you don't talk, go in there to say, okay, I'm going to go identify a problem. You identify opportunities to make life better,
Hmm.
to make something better for their end clients, right? So when I'm working with my customer,
Hmm.
I ultimately have their customers in my mind,
Hmm.
right? So I'm looking at one stage beyond, and that actually helps us when you think about it in that way, in that framework,
Right,
that
right.
who am I ultimately trying to help here? in
Hmm.
terms of either material gains or in terms of indirect efficiencies or in terms of actual customer experience. And when
Yes.
you take that approach, then you are going to uncover opportunities that are
Yes.
really awesome.
Yes, absolutely. And you have a better defined long-term strategy that can be adaptable to those specific changing needs. Because if you're thinking from the perspective of who are my current clients or my current customers, what kind of problems are they solving? When you understand those particular problems, the solutions you create, the strategy you create can be much more adaptable to those changing needs of those end users. And that's what I think was very critical about what you said. Now, one more thing I want to go ahead and uncover is really the work you're doing in terms of working across multiple regions. That's something I saw that you're doing at AWS. My question for you is this across multiple countries, or how are where does this work being distributed?
So I support one of our strategic customers. So we have a group,
Hmm.
and these are customers that are extremely well-known brands in our daily lives.
Hmm.
So I'm 100% dedicated to that customer, and it's one of the largest in this domain.
Okay.
And they do have their own offices distributed throughout different geographies in the world.
Right. Right.
So I get to talk to them sometimes in person in different countries and
Hmm.
sometimes mostly virtual. But
Hmm.
there is definitely an element of you know global
Yes.
technology perspective here, culturally as well, geographically as well.
And the reason I'm asking these questions is because certain industries, like for example, and this might not be applicable given the customer you're working with, but the electric car industry is different in America compared to Canada or India, right? For example, so how do you, or does this global market situation affect how you create these solutions or work with these customers?
Certainly, I mean, some things are very obvious and some
Hmm.
things are not. So, for example, my customer has products in different markets, right?
Hmm.
And this is true of most customers that are international in nature with their business. And it happens so that these products are designed for the local markets, right?
Yes, exactly.
So what is very apparent is things like GDPR, for example, or
Hmm.
data residency and other governance kind of things, right? EMEA or APEC or other areas. So those are very obvious things when it comes to working across geographies. What's not very apparent is subtle things in terms of what the team is doing in one country versus the another.
Mm.
Where are core technological decisions being made? Where is innovation happening? Where is experimentation happening? Where is
Hmm.
implementation happening? Right? Where are operations happening? Right,
Hmm.
for any given product or any given team. So it becomes
Hmm.
very important to understand this global context to get a
Hmm.
complete picture that if I'm working with a stakeholder in US, then how is that related to the stakeholder in India, for example, or in Barcelona, for example, or some
Hmm.
other country,
Hmm.
right? And how is this product interrelated with some other product, possibly in US, right? Is
Hmm.
it completely separated,
Hmm.
or are there concerns in terms of data residency and so on? So it's
Really, yeah.
important to understand those dependencies.
Right. It's really interesting. I've had conversations with some investment bankers, and one of the components in mergers and acquisitions, one of the very important components is if you're doing a merger between two companies in from two different countries, one of the most important things to talk about is there going to be a clash of culture, right? So my question for you is if you had the opportunity to work with these other teams from different countries, how do you mitigate those circumstances of clash of culture, and how do you make it a bit more efficient, if you
Yeah,
could answer that?
I think I'm going to have to go back to my previous ones for this.
Yeah.
I actually had a team of quite a few people from different countries:
Hmm.
Japan, China, India, Europe, USA, etc. And what I realized is that you if you want to lead the team effectively and deliver on massive turnkey projects outcomes and results on time,
Mm-hmm.
I think it starts from you as a leader,
Mm-hmm.
because you are at the forefront of it.
Right.
Lead from the front and be an authentic, transformative leader is what I always try to strive for.
Mm-hmm.
That's one thing from a people management perspective. The
Mm-hmm.
second part of it is that it's important to identify what is the common goal for everyone. You
Right.
can come from different cultures, different backgrounds, you may have different expectations, different working styles, leadership styles, different hours, etc., right? But what binds us all together?
Mm-hmm.
One is your vision of your company at the wherever you are working at the time, right? And what is the common goal that we are all trying to achieve?
Mm-hmm.
And then rally behind that purpose till you get success. The
Mm-hmm.
third thing as a leader is very important to understand your people,
Mm-hmm.
right? Because unless you take interest in their personal well-being, it's going to be difficult in the
Right.
long term, right? So for me, my team, like I used to know, when I had this team, I knew their family members. I knew where they are
Mm-hmm.
coming from, what language they speak, what food they eat, and I used to kind of make it a point to, when I visited them in their country, go and eat their food. I'm a foodie in that sense. So
Yeah.
I think it's important to stay together as one team, and the core tenets have to be there, which are
Mm-hmm.
common for everyone.
Keeping them unified on this vision is such an important concept you talked about, and all these one of these points you were talking about is actually understanding where they're coming from and making them feel like they're heard, and making sure they feel like you're putting time and effort to actually understanding them is one of the most important concepts I've learned from not only you but other individuals who have done led these global teams. And why I talk about this is because, as we discussed, a lot of mergers and acquisitions, one of the reasons for the failure of mergers is the inability to deal with the clash of culture. So I'm really pleased to see that you have your own strategy. And this is such an important concept that I don't think it's talked as much about, but I would love to have more conversations about in the future. So I really appreciate you for providing those perspectives and all the perspectives you provided on the podcast thus far. But what I want to go ahead and do now is shift this conversation to a little bit more about you on the personal side, Anjan. And the first question I have for you is, and this might be the most difficult question to ask in the podcast itself, but what is there a particular problem that you've overcome in your life that changed the way you view yourself?
I think I think there are. It's not one.
Mm-hmm.
As a human being, if there were, if there was one thing that changes you, then that would have been awesome. It would have been researched and documented.
Mm-hmm.
I think we all go through journeys, and I feel like one of the most important aspect of our journey as a human being is is this process of self transformation.
Mm-hmm.
I've learned early on, and I through my experiences, it comes back to me as a reminder that it's easy to change yourself rather than trying to change the world, right? There's a great story about a king who wanted to paint the entire kingdom green because the doctor said you should look at all the green things, it'll be good for your eyes. So he orders his minister and says, paint everything green. But the minister was fortunately smart and said, King, I have a good idea. This painting the entire kingdom is going to take us months or years. I can help you within a few seconds here. Why don't you wear these green glasses and everything will look green to you, right? And so I
Wow.
think and coincidentally, I'm wearing a green shirt today,
Yeah.
but I think that's stuck to me like anything. And I always believe that, we always try to do this in our relationships,
Mm-hmm.
that we tend to expect a whole lot from someone else,
Mm-hmm.
but we don't expect that much from ourselves.
Right. Right.
And that self transformation, thanks to my master of my life,
Mm-hmm.
has been, I think, one of the most important aspects so far.
Yeah, I love that perspective. And one concluding question for you is there something about you, if you're meeting someone new, is there something about you that they should know about?
That's a good question.
Hmm.
I think they should know that I care.
Okay.
Sometimes our body language um, doesn't show what's inside in terms of your feelings and emotions. And I've learned this that in communication, it's often better to lift the phone and call. We can chat along the whole day and never be able to convey our actual body language.
Hmm.
So I think if I met someone, then, I would say that, if it's not apparent, then I would let them know somehow that I do care.
I love that. Yeah, that's really good. I think I think it is hard sometimes when you're busy and you have things to attend to visibly show people that you care. And I know that it's hard for people to notice that because maybe sometimes your body language or the way you're speaking sometimes cannot show that. But I think it's really important that being a listener and listening to what people say and being able to take those small details that they talk about and respond with those details that they talked about is a way of showing that you care. And I think that's one of the things that I've definitely seen in our conversations as well. So I definitely appreciate that. So what I'll do now is share a very concise perspective regarding health and fitness, and then we'll go and conclude the podcast with Anjan's plans for this year. So the main perspective I want to share, just to see if I can add extra value to the audience here today, is, and as you know, a lot of my audience are executives and other technical leaders, so they're very short of time.
Mhm.
So the idea is you want to prioritize an approach that's adaptable to your schedule versus you making or prioritizing approach that you have to make time for. And why it stresses out so much all the time is because the only reason you're not able to keep certain results with your health is that you're not able to attend to the exact regime you're doing on a long enough time scale. And what typically stops it from happening is something that is not adaptable for you. What I'd recommend is prioritizing something that's location independent, something that can follow you wherever you go, something you can actually attend to, even when things are very difficult, which is typically on a week to week basis, right? So what I would recommend is leveraging something like step count, because that's something I always talk about on my podcast, because you can do this literally while you're listening to this podcast. You can do this
Step
while
count, you mean?
step count, exactly.
Mhm.
But there's a specific amount you have to do. But the
Mm.
reason I say this is because you can do this literally while you're listening to our podcast right now. You can do this while you're traveling, and you can do this while you're multitasking. And the idea is you need something that's adapting to your schedule. Because if you focus on a location dependent approach, like a gym, you have to drive to there, you have to exercise, drive back, etc. And then you waste a lot of time. And that's a
Mm.
lot harder to adhere to in a long enough time scale. And this is actually what I personally use myself to actually lose 70 pounds and keep it off, as seen here.
Wow.
So hopefully gives a different perspective to what has been traditionally told about being able to make this transformation, and something that's actually more doable for most people, hopefully. So what I'll do now is go ahead and conclude the conversation about the health and fitness, and then we'll go ahead and conclude the conversation itself here with Anjan's plans for this year. So Anjan, tell me what your plans are for you professionally or personally this year.
Uh, I actually like what you said. I would love to know more about it offline,
Yep.
certainly.
Yep.
Uh, I, I do not maintain my step count. Maybe I should actually. Maybe that should be part of my goal.
Yep.
To your point, though, I do make it a point that wherever I am for work, travel, I tend to take a walk outside, especially after dinner.
Mhm.
And that helps me not just with the physiology of the body, but also mentally to kind of
Mhm.
unpack a little bit.
Mhm.
Um, but yeah, I mean, personally, uh, physically, I think the goal is definitely to stay in shape.
Okay,
Uh,
great.
and wherever I am in my journey, I get better. By God's grace, I'm very fortunate with health, and I want to
Mhm.
maintain it. I want to keep it that way. And
Mhm.
it's not easy, I tell you that,
Mhm.
right? With the travel schedule, with work schedule, and with
Absolutely.
everything that happens in life, right? Everybody is running around. It's not easy to maintain that. So I try to hit the gym twice a week.
Mhm.
Sometimes it's not possible, even that.
Sure. Sure.
But step count helps. Yeah.
Absolutely. Yeah. Awesome. And where can people learn more about you, Anjan? Is LinkedIn the best place to learn about you?
LinkedIn is the best place, or just contact me.
Okay, excellent. Well, Anjan, thank you so for joining me. This was Aryan Mohindra and Anjan Dave.